At sunrise on November 3, 2025, the islands of the eastern Philippines awakened under a sky so crystal clear it shimmered like polished glass. Fishermen launched their boats into mirror-still seas. Children trudged to school in worn flip-flops, and shopkeepers flung open doors to the briny kiss of salt and dawn. No one suspected the ocean was already churning in fury just beyond the horizon. By early afternoon, the weather twisted into menace. Clouds ballooned into towering fortresses. Winds veered sharply. Radios hissed with urgent alerts from Pagasa, the nation's weather sentinel, a name barely whispered hours before. Typhoon Tino, spawned over the western Pacific, had exploded in strength faster than forecasts dared predict, gorging on 84-degree waters and thundering toward land like a relentless beast. In mere hours, the azure heavens evaporated. Winds howled, beyond 100 mep, ripping along the coastline as colossal waves hammered the shores. The very air trembled in rage. By nightfall, Typhoon Tino, known globally as Kaumai, loomed over eastern Visayas and Caraga, echoing the lethal trail blazed by Super Typhoon Haiyan Yolanda 12 years prior. For millions scattered across the islands, terror struck like lightning, instant and haunting. Sirens wailed, darkness swallowed the land, and echoes of 2013 surged back like a tidal wave. This was no ordinary tempest. It was history unleashing itself anew, faster, fiercer, deadlier. High above the Pacific, satellite eyes captured the nightmare unfolding, a flawless monster storm crystallizing. What started as a lowly pressure vortex off Mindanao's coast the day before had morphed into a raging Category 3 typhoon in under 24 hours, an explosive rampage. The seas below Typhoon Tino seethed at nearly 84 degrees 29 deg, and the upper atmosphere hung unnervingly calm. Paired with feeble high-level winds, these forces forged a superhighway for unchecked growth. By 2 p.m., the storm's unblinking eye glared roughly 145 miles east-southeast of Uwan in eastern Samar. Sustained winds had spiked to 95 mph, with gusts blasting past 115 mph, and experts screamed warnings of escalation to 100, 120 mph before impact. Barometric pressure plunged like a stone, signaling raw power surging, while spiral rain bands sprawled over hundreds of miles, shrouding the central Philippines in apocalyptic gloom. In the provinces of Leyte and Dinagat Islands, the typhoon's vanguard bands lashed the coasts without mercy. Rain unleashed in torrents, 2 to 4 inches per hour, transforming parched creek beds into furious rivers in minutes. Flights grounded, ferries halted, and officials hoisted signal number 3, heralding winds savage enough to uproot trees and shred roofs. Inside homes, families frantically taped windows and piled sandbags at thresholds. Children stared wide-eyed as neighbors dragged livestock to higher ground, radios thundering the dire prophecy. Typhoon. Tino accelerates westward, landfall in eastern Samar or Leyte by midnight, winds up to 115 mph. As daylight bled away, the horizon vanished behind a monolithic wall of rain. For millions along the eastern seaboard, doubt dissolved. The storm was coming, and it would strike with unholy force. By midnight, the onslaught erupted. Typhoon Tino crashed into eastern Samar's coast with sustained winds nearing 150 mm, hurling ramparts of rain and seawater inland. The serene fishing haven of Uwan bore the initial apocalypse. Roofs peeled off like tissue, palm trees cracked like matchsticks, and power lines ignited in sparks before plunging into oblivion. In Tacloban City, sirens pierced deserted streets as families crammed into evacuation havens. For countless souls, the horror mirrored Super Typhoon Haiyan's rampage that flattened their world 12 years ago. Mayor Alfred Romualdez faced cameras amid the howling gale. We learned from 2013. Preparation saves lives, but tonight's peril is undeniable. His voice nearly vanished in the external inferno. By 2 a.m., the Tacloban-Palo Road submerged under 3 feet of floodwater, severing hospital access and imprisoning hundreds in their dwellings. Southward, Ormoc City reeled from gusts that exploded windows and hurled metal roofing like shrapnel. Along Surigao del Norte's shores, waves dwarfing buses devoured beachfront homes. On Siargao Island, hotels and resorts crumbled under wind and surge assaults. From aloft, the sea appeared to have devoured the earth. Rain pounded in endless curtains, visibility plummeted to nothing. Winds roared so viciously that even rescue rigs halted, awaiting the eye's passage. In evacuation centers, survivors clustered in flickering candlelight, the walls shuddering as gusts battered tin roofs. Dawn's arrival unveiled a ravaged realm. Neighborhoods drowned, bridges erased, generators drone supplanting ocean whispers. Over 75,000 residents plunged into blackout. Yet, for the first time in eternity, the gale ceased. The storm pushed inland, bequeathing silence, ruin, and stunned grief. As the eye inched westward over the archipelago, the catastrophe's magnitude crystallized. In pre-dawn gloom, Philippine Army trucks plowed through inundated avenues, beams cutting fog and debris. Troops bellowed orders against lingering howls, aiding families through waist-deep floods, hoisting children aloft, bearing elders on improvised litters. Over 10,000 evacuees packed classrooms, churches, and gyms. Once mundane hubs, now sanctuaries. In Tacloban, mothers clustered by candle glow, murmuring pleas as aides distributed water bottles and rice sacks. In Dinagat Islands, where surges, entombed fishing hamlets, 1,000 offshore laborers were helicoptered out before camps vanished beneath rising tides. Even as winds eased, deluges persisted, morphing fields into vast lakes. Across Leyte province, farmers watched helplessly as crops dissolved. 30% of rice yields, livelihoods for thousands, obliterated overnight. One grower, mired ankle-deep. In his former paddy, confided to a journalist, "We've risen from ashes before, but these tempests return mightier each time." In the capital, engineers toiled nocturnally to unclog canals, while linemen battled to revive power for 75,000 households. By first light, the Department of Social Welfare and Development had dispersed over 100,000 emergency kits. Noodles, rice, canned fish, essentials spelling survival. Yet, for remote coastal enclaves, aid lagged. Roads barricaded, bridges toppled, airports in Ormoc and Surigao submerged. Even in peripheral cities like Cebu and Bohol, outer bands sowed mayhem. Flights axed, highways erased by torrents, families perched on rooftops awaiting salvation. Everywhere, reliance fell to bare essentials: flashlights, candles, communal grit. By day's end, skies brightened but dread endured. Typhoon Tino veered northwest, trailing wreckage and an unyielding nation. By dawn on November 4th, gales subsided, but the Philippines surged into action. Thousands of rescuers, troops, and volunteers flooded afflicted provinces, racing impending rains. In Samar, highways lay entombed by landslides. In Borongan City, rivers breached, engulfing quarters in murky depths to eaves. Saviors navigated. Floods in rubber crafts, megaphones blaring names, hunting the unsheltered. In villages, signals fluttered from upper windows, pleas for sustenance and meds. Amid debris, a miracle unfolded. The response clicked. For the first time in memory, disaster machinery hummed. Swift, synchronized, primed. President Ferdinand Marcos, Jr. mandated evacuations 48 hours pre-landfall. The NDRRMC maintained unbroken provincial links. Units pre-staged across eastern Visayas and Caraga. In Tacloban, firefighters and officers cleared arteries hours post-gale. In Ormoc, electricity returned quadrant by quadrant. Mayors live-streamed from generator-fueled halls. Grassroots, faiths, and youth doled relief to the marooned. 12 years post-Haiyan, Yolanda, history's deadliest. The nation had evolved. Order, harmony, solidarity replaced pandemonium. Preparation triumphed. Despite havoc, 0 deaths at landfall. The shift was profound in metrics and morale, but resilience suffices no longer. If this saga stirred you, like this video to champion authentic tales of nature's might and human fortitude. Share to amplify global community plights. Subscribe for further epics of endurance, science, planetary flux. Now, your voice. Are such cataclysms mere natural rhythm, or evidence Earth shifts beyond our grasp? Prepared for the horizon or clinging to denial? Every tempest imparts wisdom. Are we heeding,